This is the 10x10 floating wall desk that I designed and built. It took about a period of 3.5 months roughly to get it all completed. The building only took maybe a week. I had some help, of course. Most things took about 2 people to do. Some things maybe a third person would help. We did have 3 people in certain situations for like holding the skeleton and things of that nature to keep it level when you're putting it up. But the painting is what took the most. It's very difficult to do anything like this in terms of having this amount of gloss and this finish unless you spray. I think if I had it to do over again, the amount of imperfections that we have, if you really look really closely in the white, you can see some imperfections, but it feels like marble. I mean, just from the clear coat is marble-like, very smooth, very shiny. You can see yourself very detailed. You can read text in it, if you hold it up right against it. So it's very clear and crisp. There is some, you can see as I'm going down in that reflection of that trim there, kind of, it's a little wavy on the edges. It's not perfect. So it's not a perfect paint job. But again, I think that if I had to do over again, I had tried to roll on this Rust-Oleum white. Ended up switching to a spray because all of the clear coats that I rolled on, I could not get it even at all. It just was not sticking right. It didn't look good. And of course the white paint for some reason kept coming up. I think it was the Kilz that I used originally as the primer. It never cured. Ended up getting another thing of Kilz and tried it, and that one cured almost instantly. So everybody told me I definitely had a bad batch of Kilz, which messed everything up. So basically I repainted the whole thing with new Kilz in certain areas. Did not sand it back down completely, but most of it, and then sprayed it instead of rolling on the white like I had been. But again, I think if I had done it from the get-go like that and then painted, so basically rolled it on white and then sanded it down very smoothly with like 320, maybe 400 grit, as smooth as I could, then rolled on, Rust-Oleum makes a roll-on or a spray, like basically a can of enamel that you can do whatever you need with it. And I've read people rolling that on. It's clear gloss, just like the spray can is. But basically you roll it on and then you would sand that back down. And the way I sanded this spray on down was white is kind of hard to see reflections unless you have a shadow showing the reflection. But you can see there's a ladder over there in the corner. You can kind of see it in the shadow there. But anyways, the way that I got the clear as shiny as I did and smooth, it's actually really easy. That only took about a day, maybe half a day really, to get it all done, including compounding and polishing. But basically I did a 600 grit first to smooth out the clear coat. Some people I've read do 320. I just don't agree. I put like 6 coats of clear on this and basically took 600, then I went to 800, then I thought I went to 1,000, but I was looking again. I jumped from 800 to 1,200, and then I went to 1,500, and then I went to 2,000. Again, half a day, maybe 7-8 hours, something like that, half a waking hours of my day that day it took me. And then once I got done with that 2,000 grit, I wet sanded with 2,000. So I did 2,000 twice. And then finally, I did rubbing compound. And then after I did the rubbing compound, I tried Turtle Wax. I didn't really like Turtle Wax's polish. And then I read more about Meguiar's, so I moved on to Meguiar's. And basically, so no Turtle Wax. I think I re-rubbing compound everything. And then, and I did use Turtle Wax's rubbing compound, which seemed to do the job, did fine. So I used that, and then I used Meguiar's M205. I read that Meguiar's was probably one of your better ones for doing a finishing coat to actually make it look right, like almost mirror glaze, like when that's what actually it's called, is a mirror glaze. 205 is the one. that you need. They make a rubbing compound too, I think it's the 105 is what some people say you use instead of that one. But this combination, I mean, it gave me this. I mean, you can see the reflection of the bottle there. I mean, I think it did pretty good. It's acceptable, to say the least. Very smooth. I think the biggest problem with this whole ordeal is a few things. First, painting can be a problem because even if you do the woodworking and the wood filling and things like that, which is what we did here, you can still see as it shifts and settles over the 3-month period, things are kind of settling in. And I don't know if you can see that on this camera or not, the way it is, but the center line right here, there's actually some nails popping up a little bit, and it's just random. There's random nails popping up, some of the finishing nails. Even though we set them really well, they still are popping up. But that line is, I mean, I've sanded this thing and made it even at least 3 separate times over the last 3 months when I was doing the repainting over and over again. And it was perfectly smooth. I mean, you can feel anything. So this piece is settling behind this. So, which makes no sense because this is directly attached to this. And I did the finishing nails downward in the front here so that this would always, if it was going against gravity, it would tend to go inward instead of pulling out. So that's one way to keep this board in. I just read little techniques on how to do things like that. It seems like that's logical in terms of physics. But this is settling, not this. This doesn't seem to be moving. And of course I can measure that based off of how it's this board underneath here, how far it has come down. It has not moved. I've measured that and kept track of that. So it's definitely this top piece that's settling. These top pieces were actually 2 separate pieces. You could not get anything. I couldn't find any kind of finished wood that was that length, 10 foot 10. So we got 2 pieces of this. And I believe it was aspen, I think. Got it at Lowe's. It's actually the type that is cut and then they're edge glued. And edge glued, I read, was a lot sturdier in terms of the support for it being a desktop. So they use that a lot for desktops, supposedly. Besides cheap corkboard and things like that. This front, for the life of me, I cannot remember what type of wood that was. Somebody was saying, I think it was maybe a pine. I don't remember. Maybe it was pine, finished pine. I don't know, but you can get them at Lowe's, whatever you choose. It doesn't really matter. Just a nice piece of finished wood on the front. This is actually the PVC that Lowe's sells. There's a couple different brands of it. The glue that came out as I was wiping it down, it took off that latex paint, which we just painted. And that's latex right there too, underneath it. Just took off that new paint. But this stuff, I don't know if you can see it, it's actually reversible on the outside. This is actually outdoor trim, PVC, and it's not real wood. And you don't even have to paint it. I mean, it's not exactly the same white, but I didn't want the back to be reflective. My monitor, which I'm going to be setting up, and I'll show you pictures of that later and stuff, maybe another video. But that monitor has those LED lights on the bottom. It's the Acer Predator. And I didn't want that. It's going to be reflecting enough off this, so I definitely didn't want it reflecting off that right back at me, maybe, just depending on the height at which you're sitting. So, and I thought it would look cool like that. I was going to caulk here, actually, because they always tell you to caulk this stuff. This is that PVC. And it was fairly reasonably priced. I got it though because it's extremely flexible, very durable. Again, white, so I didn't have to repaint it. It looks fine the way it is, in my opinion. But I don't know if I'm going to caulk it or not. I don't think I am. I was waiting to do this video and then the actual walkthrough that I'm going to post here in a little bit, because I wanted to get everything finished and caulk it and things. But I kind of like that dark look, how it's got like there's black edges. Looks kind of silly from the side here because it's kind of uneven in the middle on the sides, only on these sides. I couldn't get the center pushed down all the way. It ended up leaving a gap there I did, though, get it pushed in really well here. It seems like it was pretty even. This wall was actually curved slightly. The other wall was not as bad. But you can even see that one is kind of, there is a, sorry, I was charging this thing. It's kind of got a gap there in the middle, but, see, it followed it pretty well. To get that back, though, all the way against it, I did put a lot of weights on the top to keep it down. And then I put a printer here in the middle to, those multifunction printers that I have up here in the center here, and I put it right there actually to hold it up against the wall, and it seemed like it did pretty good. Problem is when I did this one, this is the last piece I did that first. We cut it at 45-degree angles there. But we did the back first, then we did that one over there, then we did this one. And when I did this one, I really had to butt it up because it was so curved, this wall. That other wall is not really that curved. This one is, and I had to push so much pressure there that the little, basically the little foam padding, whatever it is on the bottom of the printer, there's 4 of them. Of course, most devices have something like that. And it's supposed to protect it, right? Well, sure, but it's very heavy, and the forced pieces made imprints in this enamel, which is completely cured, but I don't understand why it's so soft. It damaged it, definitely, so I had to basically redo it. In fact, I had originally did another take of this video, and as I was showing right here, sure enough, I saw an additional footprint of that printer, and I was like, what? I thought I got it all. So I literally just got finished repolishing it. Actually, I did rubbing. I did 2000, wet sanded 2000, and then rubbing, then the M205 Meguiar's. It took it out. You can't see it anymore. So got a debate on what to do with that printer. So I think got this rubber mat that I think would protect it fairly decently. I've used it actually for a long time. Walmart sells it, and you get it at Lowe's pretty much anywhere, but it's just a shelf liner. And I used the black because I was going to make a nice keyboard mouse kind of pad thing here, and then put my real mouse pad on top of it, just to give you a little bit extra protection at the 2 spots. We're going to have 2 computers here, gaming PC on the left, and then right where you just were, and then this there's going to be a Mac here. I'm going to have some VR up here in the corner. I've got the Vive. I've used it for the last year on little tripods for the lighthouses, but I'm going to go ahead and install them in the corners. So, all right, so to go in depth in terms of the underside, so the frame is basically 2x4s. The 2x4s, first, of course, you got to figure out how many studs you have. You know, if you don't have a lot of studs, I don't know if I'd advise doing it this way. I mean, there's other ways to do it. You know, we have the standard stud placement. Some of them are slightly off, but for the most part, we have the standard stud placement. The sidewall here is a problem because there's only one stud there, and right at the edge there, this desktop ends up being about, give or take, I think it's 24 inches. And then this adds like 3/4 of an inch. It's almost 25 inches out. So to get the desktop on, you know, of course you put this piece of this edge glued wood. You can kind of see the edges there where they glued them. And of course it comes that way. It's not something we did, in case you're confused. But we built the frame back, so that back piece, as well as these here, these cross beam supports. And that's all they are. The problem is that I've got this covered up now, so you'll be able to see in pictures this stuff a little bit better. But as you can see, there's one there, and those are a little misleading, and I'll get to that in a second. But basically, just imagine every stud. So there's a stud there. You can see where I've got there's a long screw there. Believe it's like a 3-inch, 4-inch. I can't remember exactly, and it depends on your setup. You have to measure how thick your drywall is. and how deep you need to go into your studs and that sort of thing. And then, of course, whatever you choose. I use 2x4s, so you have to account for that. I think we've got, maybe those might be 5 inches. I'm horrible at this. I cannot remember. It's been so long. But I'll try to get the details in the walkthrough. But basically, so we've got that, and then we've got a stud bolt there. So there's a screw and a bolt. Both of them are very long. Those I think they're called lag bolts. I can't remember, but they are very strong. They're very thick. Essentially, one screw, one lag bolt at each stud. This crossbeam support here is, of course, like I said, we lined them up all the way across, and on the back side of this, so not here. It's not. There's no. We didn't toenail in any screws or anything like that there. On the opposite side, there are 2 screws, long screws, like I think it's those top ones. I think we use that as well, straight in. So 2 of them straight in to hold it in there perfectly. And we, of course, leveled them up as we were doing it. We were trying to make those as level as possible to the back of this. The reason being, of course, is because we wanted it to be as level as possible when we put this board on here. And it's only attached to the top with finishing nails. But if you look here closely, that's just offset to the side of the stud. So there's the stud. You can see where we marked the stud here with that line. Put those there. And then this right here is just offset. And it depends on either, whatever side you choose. We chose this side. But, you have to pick yourself. So we did that one the same way, but we just did that on the very edge. We did one of these things offset to each of them. Each of the studs all the way along that we wanted. There's some studs that we did not put one next to, as you can see right there. But, it's basically where you need support. So where things would be. So right here is where the computer's going to be. Right there, we did use 2 of them. That's where I was planning on putting the printer. Second guessing that now, but I probably still would put the printer up there with maybe some wood or something. Put that foam down, that nice drawer liner thing that I showed you, and then put some wood on top of it to distribute the weight a little bit more evenly. But here, this is where it gets a little interesting because this, so can't really see it, but you can kind of see how it's not perfectly attached to that back 2x4. We did this because, and some people that I've seen that have done these things do go ahead and put these supports here all the way down. We didn't really do that. And I think these are, I'd said earlier to somebody that these were, I think these are 6-inch supports. I can't remember exactly. I don't remember how they measure them because it's a lot longer than 6 inches. I think it's 6 inches this way. I think that's how they measure it. Or maybe I used 8 inches. I don't remember. Anyways, so some people, like I said, put these all the way down. I didn't feel like I really needed it because I lucked out and we did have a very good way of getting to that other stud. So again, there was only one there. And there's one there, and we didn't use the best, nails or screws or anything like we did on that, but we did get them at an edge. We found the stud and got it in it for sure. It's definitely in the stud there. So we did it at an angle there. It actually even went through this front piece, but we'll get to the front piece in a second. So these were put on after we got the desk built, but I'm just going to go ahead and tell you. Make sure when you're doing this framework first that you're putting the stud, so there's where the stud is inside there. You can kind of see the line there where we drew, just like we did over there. And we offset it, and this is the board here that we offset. And then this one was screwed into that board. As you can see, just it's fake. It's not really going all the way down like the other ones do. And the other ones do go all the way down. As you can see here. They go all the way down to the front. So basically, this allows for this to be attached to it, yet still be screwed into the stud. So you're getting more stud bracing for the center
which is problematic because this is, there's nothing like on the sides. You still have the side studs to hold up the front, as well as some middle supports just to kind of help distribute the weight more evenly. And it's sturdy. And people are like, well, no, you need to go ahead and put those down there. Well, we gave it the option to do that, of course, by the way that we designed this. I mean, I could add another one there if it started to sink or sag there anyway. Hopefully it doesn't. So far, I've stood on the thing with, I'm 155, 160 pounds. Completely solid. Doesn't even budge. So this is definitely doable. That printer I have is 60 pounds. I sit right in the center here, and it's, it doesn't move. I don't even hear like a popping or anything, like you would think you would from the wall. In fact, my floor actually pops more than the than this desk. So anyway, so that's kind of explained this. These were put on, though, again, these were put on after we got all the pieces on the front because we wanted the weight to see exactly how it was going to be. And once we got the top piece, this piece put on and your front piece of wood here put on, then we went ahead and we took some levels and leveled out the whole thing just to see if there was any adjustments necessary. And there were a little bit. So we did kind of raise it. We used some jacks and we lifted it from here, from the floor. And then basically put these on and screwed them in so that it held it at that position. And I'm telling you, that really helped. The unfortunate thing is it's slightly lower in that front. I think that when we toenailed that one into that stud there, we must have sagged it a little bit, just kind of not paid attention or something. But just in that corner, it is slightly lower. Again, just a hair off on the level. Some people say they can see it, maybe, but probably not that big of a deal. It's more likely that it's just an optical illusion because it's so long and from the angle. But anyways, back to the actual process. So once you got this all lined up and everything put together, in terms of the frame, then that's when you put on, and you can't see it. Oh, here, you can see it over here. We put this 2x4 on the front, and then it was screwed in with the same screws, those long screws there, along this, went right into it, right in. And of course, as we're doing that, we're starting on one side and we're going down and we're leveling each section so that this was level, this was level, this is level. And as we're going, these are really long 2x4s, right? They're 10 foot 10 inches. And that's the other thing too. This is a solid 2x4 all the way. We cut it to spec to that back wall, and then we cut it to spec on the front. And don't forget, measure your distance between your drywall where you're going to end, because that right there is a different length than there because this wall curves. It's not perfect. So I used a laser tape measure actually to do it, and it was very accurate. So that really helped. I suggest you get one. But this right here, basically, so as we're going, we're screwing this one in, and then we're measuring what's level. And when we get to the next one, then we were screwing that one in and measuring when it's level, and so on. And we're bending this front piece up and down as we go to make sure that it's perfectly level. And then after we got that front piece on, that's when we then toenailed in this side. After we then, once this was level, then we made sure that the entire thing was level, and then toenailed those into that stud there, which locked it in place. Then the fun part comes, because then you got to put your top on, of course, and then level that out. And we did our best to level it as best as possible. There's a multitude of things you could do. Shims, you can shave things down slightly in certain areas, that kind of thing. But for the most part, as long as you have that level, those boards are almost flawless. And so, it was pretty much level across the board. We got really lucky. Barely had to do anything with that. And then what you don't do in terms of when you cut it, we cut these boards to spec, and then the splice joint, I don't know if you can see it. It's not really picking it up. But there's a splice joint right there in the middle. I can't see it on this camera if you can see it or not, but it's right here. I did the woodworking, I used wood filler, not wood putty. It was perfect, but again, it's kind of settled over the time, and basically it's kind of starting to show edges here and there. But we used finishing nails for the top to nail it in.
and then which could be a problem too. Maybe that's why it's settling and moving, because we didn't use screws. But then on the front piece, of course, this finished plywood, that was hard to do because we didn't want the full, I couldn't find one that was to spec that would cover, I wanted to cover. So again, this is butted up against the front piece, if that makes sense. It's the front piece and this, it's right up against it. So this top piece ends at the edge of the 2x4, and then this goes in the front, and then we filled in the gap here with wood filler. So basically, I had to get something. Now you could do it a different way, and you can maybe get something that's not as tall if you wanted to, and put this below the front piece. You could have the front piece come over it, I guess. Design it that way, but then you wouldn't have as much desk space, and I wanted a little bit extra. So this is functioning as part of the desktop, the top of this piece of finished wood here. So, but we cut it lengthwise, so it's not perfect. There are some slight, but this paint, the way it came down, it actually kind of covered it, because the paint kind of sags a little there as you're painting, and gravity's pulling it down. It's actually made a nice, of course I sanded it too here and there, but it made a nice little kind of smooth edge there to kind of cover it up, which has actually worked out perfectly, because this is not, again, perfect, because we took and cut this lengthwise all the way down about that much off, about an inch or so off of it, just so that it would not be so tall, because you want it sticking out. And it does stick out slightly, but the reason it sticks out right there is because I wanted to be able to put plywood here. Got some paint there. And we put plywood here for a couple reasons. First was to make cubby holes, so that you could actually put stuff in there, store things. I should have turned the, won't let me turn on the flash now. But you can store things in there. I don't know if you can see it or not. And it's wide enough. You have to measure it. So, pick your front piece to be the width that you want this to be. Of course, and there's ways to do it. Of course, your 2x4s, you couldn't use a 2x4. You might have to use something larger than 4 inches, because really a 2x4 is actually 3.5 inches tall from top to bottom. So really, I've only got about 3.5 inches in there, which is, again, clearance enough for most modems and things like that. But you got a bunch of them. I was going to drill holes through these so you could run wires, but then I really started thinking about it. Technically, I could just kind of unscrew these, and I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to unscrew these and then put some rubber in between, maybe, to kind of cushion it right at these edges, and then just run the wires through that and then screw them back in. I think that's how I'm going to do my cable management. Some people were suggesting, well, you could just take staples and staple your wires up there, and you could, but you might be able to see it slightly. And some people even had mentioned, why don't you put the wires on the walls? And I thought, well, yeah. And I thought, well, yeah, heck yeah, I could just drill right through this or something, wherever I need. But again, you're taking away some stability maybe from that. Probably not that big of a deal. Just a little hole there probably wouldn't matter. But I don't think I want to put any more holes in my walls. I think this is good enough. So hopefully that covers everything. Took 30 minutes to kind of go through it. Hopefully that makes sense of how we did it. And just kind of give you a nice little walkthrough that explains things, hopefully pretty decently. If I did forget anything, let me know. I don't think I did. I think we covered everything in terms of what we used and things. Of course, you got to improvise a little bit, but again, I'll try to get together some parts lists and just try to explain the process a little bit more in depth. But anyways, thanks for watching.